All right, welcome folks here to the third lesson, Order of Operations. We're going to start out here by taking a look at the warm-up, and just want to try the warm-up. And you're going to notice here, you probably might have seen this before. I think you've seen this before. Is this little number, this little superscript right here above the number? And I want you to see if you can do that. Take about 2 or 3 minutes. Look at that and see if you can answer those two questions. Okay, and you can pause it and give it a shot, and then play it, and we'll be right here. Okay, now 5, this is read 5 to the second power, or 5 to the power of 2, or 5 exponent 2. And what this means is this 2 counts the number of times 5 is multiplied by itself. Okay, so 5 multiplied by 5, right? Because it's multiplied by itself 2 times, is 25, right? And the next one, we have 2 to the 5th. So this little subscript or superscript right here, 5, tells you how many times 2 is going to be multiplied by itself. And so we're going to write 2 out 5 times. 2 times 2 times 2, 5 times. And if you multiply those out, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, and times 2 is 32. Okay? There will be some vocabulary that will be important, just like every other subject. Our vocabulary here is going to be just as important in math. You may have heard this term before. To simplify means to put an expression in simplest, and I'll write this out, simplest form. Okay. All right, so it just means to basically take something and make it look prettier, okay? Put it in a simpler form, okay? An expression is the addition or subtraction of values, okay? They could be letters, they could be numbers, but we are adding and we are subtracting them, okay? An equivalent expression, you probably hear this prefix equa, means that you have 2 equal, okay, equal values. All right. Absolute value, sometimes absolute value will have these little brackets around it. And absolute value is the distance from 0. So we'll put 0 on a number line. Okay. So if you were to go through and you were to, let's say, draw out a number line, here's a number line right here, and here's the number 0 right in the middle. You have 3, which is a distance of 3 away from 0. But you also have the number over here of -3. And -3 is also a distance of 3 away from 0. It just happens to be in the other direction. Okay? And a lot of times we'll write that out as the absolute value right here of -3. And you might remember this as, oh, anything in the absolute value right here, any number, any single number in the absolute value, it changes into a positive value. Okay, but the absolute value is a distance from 0 on a number line. Okay, to square something means to multiply. Okay, means to multiply a number okay, by itself. All right. So when we're writing this out, when we write square, you might think of it as like, oh, 3 to the second power or 3 squared. Just another way of writing it. Oh, 3 to the second power or 3 squared is 3 times 3. Okay. So just another way of saying we're multiplying something by itself. And you're done. You may remember the order of operations. We do grouping symbols, so parentheses, absolute value, square root is included in that. First, functions, this should be 3 to the second power. So we mean by functions, we mean exponents. Forget about this business, this square root, and that kind of business. Those are included, obviously, in the grouping symbols. So when we mean by functions, we mean exponents. Okay, another word for exponents right there. So we'll just put that there. Okay. And then the final two are a little bit confusing for students, but if we do this, we do dividing and multiplying, and we do them in order from whichever comes first from left to right. And then the final one, adding and subtracting, whichever comes in order first from left to right. Okay? So when we read like we're reading a book, we read it from left to right. So if we're doing an order of operations and the multiply becomes before the division in order from left to right, then we do multiplying first. Okay, if division comes before multiplication on the left to right, then we do that first. Okay, we'll get to some of those in just a moment. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at some of these absolute value, okay, problems. And absolute value means a distance a number is from 0. So 5 is a distance of 5 away from 0. Now with these ones, you're not going to take the absolute value of each. What you're going to do is you're going to subtract these first. So let's subtract them. 12 minus 21 happens to be a negative 9. So go ahead and do that. Write down a negative 9. And the distance negative 9 is away from 0 is a positive 9. Okay? So what I like you to do is take a look at these two problems, right? Give them a shot. And then when you're ready to hit play, go ahead and do that and you can check your answers. All right? So let's take a look at here number 1. Number 1 is the absolute value of negative 14. Negative 14 is 14 away from 0, so we're just going to put that. The second one is the absolute value of 24 minus 37. Okay, 24 minus 37 is negative 13. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. Write down a negative 13, write that in there. And the absolute value of negative 13 happens to be 13. So there it is. There's 13. And you are done. All right. The next couple of problems that we're going to look at are order of operations problems. So you're going to have an expression, and you're going to have to go through and do the expression order from according to the order of operations, and that's the set of operations that I give up here. Grouping, then exponents, then multiply and divide in order from left to right, then subtract and add in order from left to right. Okay, so let's take a look at these. These are some helpful hints that will guide you in kind of the right direction. It may help you to chunk these problems into smaller, little more bite-sized pieces so that they're able to be done a little bit easier. You're going to look for addition and subtraction to separate the chunks. And you can even highlight sections you can evaluate at the same time if you like to do that. Another helpful hint is take your time on this. Don't rush and show your work, okay? When you show your work on this, the more work you show, the more credit you get. Okay, so we're going to use some of these helpful hints up here. And notice that we have an addition, and I'm going to separate this addition out, right? So that you have two pieces right here. You have the 5, and then you have the 7 times the 3. Okay, and let's do the 7 times 3 first because that's multiplication. That's a chunk. And so 7 times 3 is 21. And we have a 5 plus a 21, and I want you to write it out like this. I don't want you to just write a number. I want you to write out your steps. And then once you get down to the addition or subtraction or whatever of two numbers, then go ahead and do that right away. 21 plus 5 is 26. Okay. We're going to go through and take a look at the next one. All right. You have a subtraction here. So what we have is we have really two chunks, and we're going to do the two chunks separately. So let's take a look at the first chunk. You see a 4, and it's on the outside of this parentheses, okay? The outside of this grouping symbol parentheses. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the inside of the parentheses first. So let's do 3 plus 5. We're going to do that and get a positive 8. I'm going to keep the parentheses there for just a moment. And I'll tell you why in just a little bit here. All right, we got 4 times 8 minus, right here, 5 times 4. And that really is a 4 times 8. Even though you don't see any symbol on the outside of this, you may write this. If you ever see a number on the outside of a parentheses and no operation, just write it as 4 times 8. Okay? 4 times 8 minus 5 times 4. And we are going to do each of these separately. 4 times 8 is 32. And 5 times 4 is 20. And if we go through and subtract those, now we can do that very nicely and get our answer. So what I'm stating here is the more work that you show, like this, like this, like this, even if you get it wrong, you're still probably going to get a lot of points for that, for showing the work. Okay, let's do the last piece right here. Notice that we have a subtraction. So we've got a couple pieces here, the first and the second. Let's do the second piece here. That's an exponent, 3 to the second power. And if you want to write that off to the side, 3 to the second power or 3 squared, go ahead and do that. That's fine. 3 to the second power, 3 to the second is 3 times 3. And notice here I'm keeping everything underneath my expression. So please do that. Keep everything underneath it and keep everything nice and organized. Otherwise, it can get a little bit messy, and I don't want it to get messy for you. So we're going to write that out here just real quick like. We've got the second expression, part chunk, evaluated. Now we're going to do the first one. And now notice here, we've got a division and a multiplication. We're going to do those in order from left to right, whichever comes first. 22 divided by 11 is 2. And notice we're taking our time when we write this out. Okay, we're not skipping steps. And now we can do this multiplication. This is 2 times 9, which is 18. 18 minus 9 happens to be 9. And you are done, right? Now, you've got a couple of problems. What I'd like you to do is take a look at these problems right here. And then when you're ready, push play, and I'll be right here. Okay? So take a look at these. All right, let's take a look at the first one. We've got two pieces here. Let's do the parentheses first. 15 minus 5 is 10. and then 10 times 2, right? We have two numbers. Now we can just multiply that out and we get 20. Done. Okay? Let's take a look at the second one. We've got a subtraction sign, so we've got two pieces here. The first one right here is a little bit more elaborate than the second one. The second one is just a number, so we can't really do anything with that. However, we can do something with the first chunk. And let's see here. We've got we've got an addition. I guess we've got a couple chunks right here. One chunk, two chunks. Right here, three chunks. Okay. So let's do the first one. 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36. And I'm going to write that. 36. And that's plus 3 times 7. So 3 times 7, let's do that. Okay. 3 times 7 is 21. And we have 36 plus 21 minus 9. So we've got addition and subtraction. Let's do those in order from left to right. Adding 36 and 21, we get 57. And 57 minus 9 happens to be 48. Okay? So we write that down, and you are done with the second problem. All right, let's take a look at this last one. This one looks a little bit elaborate because you've got a couple of parentheses, a couple of grouping symbols. Let's do the innermost one right here first, okay? So let's do 27 divided by 9. The innermost parentheses first, 27 divided by 9. Okay, that is 3. Now we've got a 10 minus 3. Now we've got this grouping symbol right here on the outside. You may write it like this. And then we've got a 3 on the outside. So let's do the inside right here first. Okay, 10 minus 3 is 7. We've got a 3 on the outside of this parentheses. And if you recall, like I mentioned earlier, we have 3 times 7, and 3 times 7 happens to be 21. Okay? All right, the last piece right here is an error analysis. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to do this. I want you to see if you can catch the error. So I'm going to write this out as if I'm doing this maybe as a particular student. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do the squared. All right. And then I'm going to go through. I'm going to multiply these out. And then divide. And voila, I have an answer. Or so you think. Or so you think. There is an error in here, and if you would like to pause the video for just a moment, you will see an error. And see if you can catch it. Take a moment or two, see if you can catch the error, and we'll be right here. All right. So we're looking through this. We go through, let's see, we have an addition symbol. So we have two parts. And it looks like we have a 5. Can't do anything with that. We have a division, an exponent, and a multiplication. So bam, bam, bam. You have two operations. It looks like we did the exponent right here. So that looks pretty good. 2 to the second is 4. We write that out. This seems to be pretty good. It looks like we did the exponent right here, and that is correct. However, in the next step right here, we have a division, a multiplication, and an addition. Now, be careful on this because we mentioned that the division and the multiplication is done in order from left to right. So we do the division first, and then we do the multiplication. So this, we multiplied before we divided. That is wrong. Okay? This should be 32 divided by 4, which happens to be big, good old-fashioned 8. Okay? So 32 divided by 4 is 8 times 2 plus 5. So we needed to divide before we multiplied. Okay? So watch for that. When you have a division and a multiplying, you do the division first if it comes on the order from left to right. If this were a multiplication and then a division, we would multiply first and then divide. So it comes in order from left to right. So this should be done first, or should have been done first. 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 plus 5 is 21. Okay? Your assignment at the very end here is a set of operations, order of operations, and a few absolute values. So check those over, play around with those, okay? And when you feel like you have got that, submit that through Kami into Schoology, and you should be good.